Welcome to Job Tales, the show where we interview people from all over the world about their profession. Through my podcast, I wish to inspire you by giving an overview of all the jobs existing out there, or almost all of them. Today we talk about the job of a keynote speaker and how today's guest has managed to become a full-time professional, giving speeches to companies, schools and institutions around the world and around the topic of time. I will say no more. Here's my interview with Anna. Anna Jelen, welcome to my show. I'm happy to have you. Very original job you have. Well, first of all, because you're known as the time expert, and more than that, you're actually a keynote speaker. So I'm interested to learn how did you become a keynote speaker?
Well, thank you, Laura, very much for having me, and I'm very happy to be here, and also happy to share how to become a keynote speaker. Because I mean, if I can do it, I always think everyone can. But I also have to say it started very early. So I think one of my first memorable events was when I was 15 years old. And so we had to make a presentation, everyone in class. And I remember that everyone, they didn't like it. They were nervous, they didn't like it. And I was so hyped. I remember putting so much effort and the first time really like work into something. And it was about,
Uh-huh.
I remember my presentation was about Sweden, and I put in there facts. I wanted to have pictures, I wanted to have videos, and I remember that I wanted to be able to stand in front of the class without notes. I wanted
Hmm.
to know my speech by heart or my presentation, and I loved it. And I really loved it. And today, so many years later, I think about my teacher and I wonder, why didn't he tell me? Why didn't he tell me that I was the only one who liked it? Or maybe even he saw that it was an easy task for me. It was
Yeah.
easy for me. And I think always when something is easy for you, that means something. If it's
Yeah.
easy for you and for the others it isn't,
Maybe there might be something. Yeah.
exactly.
Mm.
But nobody told me. Yeah.
Nobody told you. You know what's interesting is that this is also was my case when I had to
Really?
choose communication sciences. You could choose business communication, so marketing, PR. There was then journalism, and then there was like multimedia that was
Yeah.
starting back then. And I remember that journalism. I didn't choose it because I didn't like to write, but nobody told me that I could be doing video journalism because I love
Yeah.
to be in front of a camera to speak like you, and nobody told me, and so I never took journalism, and
Oh no.
I
Yeah.
yeah, chose business communication. So this is it's too bad, and this is the reason why I do job tales, is to give options to the
Yeah.
young listeners. Is okay, you're good at speaking in front of a public. Do you know that you could be a keynote speaker? And so that's why you're here, because and then
Yeah.
you bring your story, and because it is a career that you can take.
It is.
Yeah. So, although it seems, I understand that you didn't take it right away. What did you study when you finished high school?
Well, actually, I didn't study. So I completed
Mm.
high school and then I completed a commercial education. But that was also
Okay.
like 4 years in Germany. And then I became a product manager for a big company. So it wasn't, and I was employed for very long, 15 years maybe. But
Mm.
also there in my job, I remember I was 24 when I went to my boss and I asked him and her, it was two, I said, I would like to do a workshop. I would like to start with like a speech and then go into the workshop with my clients. And they said, oh yeah, do it. But they thought I'm going to come up with a product workshop, or talking about my products. but but
Oh.
I didn't tell them that I would be talking about time. So
Oh.
I remember having the flip chart in front of the where it was, in the building, and it said, so the title of my workshop was, I think, the longest title you can choose. It was, "Don't live as if you have another 1,000 years to live." That was my
Okay.
that was my title for the workshop. And I remember my boss coming there, and he stood in front of that flip chart looking at that title, and he came up to me and he said, "Are you going to speak about the products?" I said, "No." But I said, "But this is how we keep our clients. You have to do other stuff, you know." So you see, I always got it in. Whatever I
Mm,
did before I became self-employed, I always tried to put it into my work. And that's also exactly, I had a young class last week, and someone asked me, when do you quit your job? A very
mm,
nice, a lovely question. And I said, funny that you're asking me, because it was always very important for me to know this. When am I going to quit my job? And I told my bosses, I said, look, I have decided I'm going to quit my job when I touch the ceiling with my ideas. When you
mhm.
when you when you say you can't do this, Anna, that's when I'm going to quit. And they let me do so much. I tell you, they let me do so much. I remember I had to bring, the, how do you call them, the finances in, the monthly revenues, and I did.
Mhm.
And as long as I did that, it was good. But
It
next
was
to
good.
that, next to that, I gave speeches, I gave workshops about time and all that. So yeah, I always try to get it into my life wherever I was.
And so the job you had nothing to do with time or with public speaking, right?
No, not
Okay, it was
not
like a
not.
pure product, okay,
Yeah,
off the shelf or anything. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And so okay, so you kind of prepared your path, while
Hmm.
you were having a secure job, which is probably a wise thing to do instead of just jumping into the unknown. And then what happened afterwards? Because you resigned, and how did you
Hmm.
prepare for your next profession?
Well, I think I wasn't prepared because I just didn't know how to manage a business. I didn't know, I have to say. And so I always say, I think the first 7, 8 years, I did everything. I like every mistake you can make in business, I did them.
Mm.
I really did them. And I had to go through many hard times. And I think one of my hardest times of my career was for sure when I had financial troubles. That was bad.
Okay.
The rest,
Mm.
I was always somehow I could handle it with my mindset. But the financial troubles, when I had to go to the one I was renting my flat from, and I went to him, I said, I can't pay my rent anymore. That was like, that was the hardest time, I think. And I had, but the good thing is I hustled through it. I remember when I couldn't pay my bills anymore, I remember picking up the phone, which I should have done before, but I just didn't
Mhm.
dare. I didn't have the courage. I didn't want to. I worked on my speech. My speeches were brilliant, but they were just, in my office. They were happening for myself, and I didn't go outside. I didn't go and say, look, I'm Anna Jelen and I have a fabulous speech about time. I didn't do that. So the money was just running out. And I remember that day really where I had to talk to my landlord and say I can't pay my rent. And he said, well, I give you 2 or 3 months, but not more. And I remember that I went back in my office and I sat down, and it was my dad's idea. He said, pick 10 people, pick 10 people, put them on a list, call them and say exactly, hello, it's me, Anna, and I have a good speech for you. Do you want to book it? And
Mm.
yeah, and I remember doing it, put 10 names on the paper, and I called. When I had 3 yeses, I stopped.
Okay.
Yeah, but then I thought, okay, with the 3 yeses, there would be so and so much money, then I can pay the rent. And that's exactly how I just always did it. Really, I am someone, I need pressure, and that's when I come into action, but then I do. Then I come into action, and then I take anything I can do. I do it. I pick up the phone. I send out emails. That's always how I've been doing it. Yeah, and it works. It always
It
works.
works. That's great. And so you have a good topic to present to companies, and to, you said you were talking also about schools, so you also go to institutions, schools,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
companies.
yeah.
Okay,
Wherever, because exactly as you say, the topic time is interesting for everyone.
it's relevant for everyone. And so why did you pick the topic?
Well, I think I didn't pick it. It was just in me. I think I always say I'm born with the fascination for the topic time, and it's true. It's always been there. I've always been fascinated by how people spend or use or waste their time. It was always
Hmm.
a big topic at home, and as a kid, I loved to talk about like when I saw people in an unhappy situation. I didn't understand why they're still in it, because I knew that time was limited, and I thought, if you think about this every single day, that your time is limited and that you don't know how much time you have, you must make the day of your life. This is like when I was a kid, that was how I thought. And it's always been there. It really has always been there. And as I said, when I quit my job, I created my own company. I knew it's going to be about time, but I thought it's going to be time management, because I thought
Hmm.
if you want to talk about time, you have to talk about time management. And
Yeah.
I did in the beginning until I was bored. I remember I was bored at my own workshop, and I thought that's not good.
Oh, really? Okay.
That is absolutely not good. And then I thought no, and then again I came into financial troubles because I couldn't sell. I mean, how can you sell something when you don't stand behind it? And I
Hmm.
remember then my partner, we were in Neo, by the way, in a restaurant,
Hmm.
in an Italian restaurant. And he said the one question, he said, how would you do it? If it would be Anna like, how would you present time? How would a speech about time look like? And I said, oh, I wouldn't talk about time management. I would talk about time in with another perspective. Like, what if we know that our time is limited? Would we change the way we live? And I would
Hmm.
go the philosophical way, I would go the psychological way. And he said, well, do it. And that's when I started to do it the Anna way. That's when it started to work. That's exactly when it started to work.
So you would say, how many years after you took the decision consciously to become a keynote speaker and talk about time, that it did kick in for you?
I think it started to kick in with two things. There was an article about me, and the other thing was my world tour, which was called "Let's Talk About Time." I had the idea to go and visit over 20 cities in the world with my speech, and I think that was about 7 years in. Yeah,
Hmm.
7 years
Okay.
in. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And how did you book those speeches in the different cities? Did you do it in
Yeah.
advance, or as you would go?
Oh, I tell you, when I look back, I must laugh because,
I can't believe what you
yeah,
did.
it's. I mean, I really, really, I put out an event in New York online. Okay, I put out an
Hmm.
event on a date. I looked in my agenda. I looked at the date. I thought, okay, let's say the 22nd November. I'm going to give a speech in New York, in that building, and you had to book the ticket. But it was like,
Hmm.
10 francs, 20 francs. And when I had more than 10 people participating at the event, then I booked the flight. And then I actually
Okay.
really booked the room and everything. And then I flew to New York, and I would go to the supermarket. I remember I would buy beer, water, and chips, but not very healthy. Um, but that's but I never knew, like, okay, 10 people coming. Okay, how much do I buy? And then I went into that room and I waited to the people to show up. And then I gave my speech and then we had the conversation. And I did that in 23 different cities all around the world. And I tell you, I remember the first story I would like to share was in Portland, because I had to, it was a room where you had to put in a code in the building below, and I put the code outside the building.
Mm.
I mean, which you shouldn't do. I know that. And suddenly there were homeless people coming in to that building
Oh.
because now they had the code. And I remember someone screaming in that building, who put out that code? And I thought, oh my God, that was for my participants. So I had almost the most people in Portland, because half of it were homeless. They were sitting in that speech as well, listening to me, drinking all that beer and eating all those chips. But they were really interested. They were sitting there, they were really interested. And I couldn't believe it. And the other story was Berlin. I had 50 persons saying, I'm coming to the event. 50 persons.
Mm.
So I thought, oh my God, this is going to be bigger than 30 or 20. And I booked a little coffee shop. They did like a literature readings in there sometimes. And they said, yeah, you can give your speech here. So they closed the coffee, and it was a little restaurant. They closed it just for me, and I should be
Oh.
starting at 7 o'clock in the evening. And I remember at 2 minutes before 7, no one was there. And I remember,
Hmm.
oh, 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 oh. And two people came. Two people. Out of 50 people saying they're coming, two people came.
Only two. Oh, that's frustrating. Eh? Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I always said it doesn't matter how many people are going to show up. If one person shows up in the end, I'm going to give her that speech. She's going to be
Hmm.
my audience. And that's always how I did it. Yeah.
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 Cool. So that was the around the world tour,
Mm-hmm.
and now can you say that you are comfortable with your job? Let's say, like you can live from your
Mm-hmm.
profession as a speaker and time expert.
Yeah, I can. And I am so thankful. I am so thankful. You have no idea. This is
Amazing.
and I think you really have to be, it is true about, you have to go through many moments where you think, why am I doing this, really. But you just keep on going, and you have to get yourself back in that state that you believe in yourself, and that there is I always had a very high amount of trust in
Mm.
life. I always
In your
trusted
skills
life,
and in yourself.
that it's going to be okay. But I
Mm.
also think you really have to work a lot in the beginning, to not just in the beginning, but you have to be all right with working a lot, I think. And then you're going to get there. You're just going to get there. I really do believe in
Mm.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Over the course of the years, what do you think were the skills that you have improved so that you
Mm-hmm.
can be where you are today?
Mm-hmm. That's also a good example. I started doing all the courses you can do to, be a good speaker, with storytelling, with into how to use your voice, how to pronounce the phrases, and then of course also the body language. You name it, everything you need to be on stage, I did it. But
Hmm.
in the end, and I think it's good that I did it, but in the end, there is a speech, like you can see that I use all the tools I've learned, and I think it's the most boring speech I ever gave. But and then you have the rather new speeches. That's when you have Anna. That's when you have full Anna on stage. And I think you have to stay authentic, and you have to be you, and you have to be able to say, oh, I don't remember what I just wanted to say. You can say it in
Mhm.
front of 1,000 people. They will laugh. They will love it so much more than when you put on a mask. You cannot put on a mask on stage. I don't
Mhm.
think so. You have to. It's maybe others can. I can't. I need to be the Anna who I am. And then I see people, they come up to me and they say, "You so you when you're on stage." And I say, "Yeah, and I hope everyone is himself or herself, or that self they truly are, because that's unique." I mean, that's the
Mhm.
unique. Laura is unique. But when we learn things, we're not unique anymore. And I think on stage you have to stay unique. You really have to stay
Mhm.
unique. That's something I would give as an advice or just a
Mm.
tip. Yeah.
So, what would you recommend for someone who's listening today and is a bit
Hmm.
scared of taking this avenue, and but would really like to try? Are there maybe less, because I can see, if it was me having to choose, what scares me is the entrepreneurship, the fact that you need to find your clients and you need to really be
Hmm.
independent in this, and I'm not good at that, I know that. So
Mm.
for someone
Hmm.
who would rather be maybe pampered or
Hmm.
looked
Hmm.
after, are there companies where you can start as a junior speaker or as a moderator, or are there agencies that work with marketing departments that one could apply?
Yeah, I'm sure they are. There are. I'm sure there are. That wasn't my way. And that's what I would say. I would say, I don't. Also, still, I don't like to sell my speeches or sell myself.
Right.
But what I do is, I have to contact 3 people per day. That's the minimum,
Okay.
and I can go
Mm-hmm.
higher if I want to. If I'm in a flow, I go higher. And it doesn't matter how you contact them. I write letters, I write postcards, I sometimes pick up the phone, I write many emails, I contact people on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn. It doesn't matter. But those 3 to 10 people, contact people per day, I do. And the other thing is, I would prepare a speech, your speech, and then I would say, I have a speech in my I have a speech and it is good, and do you want to hear it? That's how I would do it. It really,
Mm-hmm.
do as if it's already there. And then I would contact, from schools to elderly homes to whatever is out there, and you
Mm-hmm.
say, I have a speech, you want to hear it. And in the beginning you might even say, how much do you want to pay for it? I had people
Mm-hmm.
saying, look, I can only pay 100 francs. Are you going to do it for 100 francs? And in the beginning I said yes. I said, I'm going to
Okay.
do it for 100 francs, because I wanted
Yeah.
to get into the, how do you say, into the routine. I wanted to
Yeah.
give that speech. I didn't care
Mm-hmm.
for whom. I thought, you just have to do it. Yeah.
Great. It's very it's very rewarding, especially when you put so much effort in it. And so, my last question would be like, how many speeches do you need to do in a month in order to feel comfortable financially? I mean.
I think, well, I'm still nervous when I get on stage. That I don't want it to go away, because that gives you the energy that you need to get out there, I think. But I think, if you do, I remember once I had one speech per week, and then I started to get in that routine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Once a
Okay.
week, one speech a week. But I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot with the traveling and everything. And then one day you might be able to say, one speech in a month is enough. Maybe you can get there.
Ah,
But
nice.
in the
Ah,
beginning, I would say, let's like take the opportunities everywhere. Just go for it, and do those experiences and collect them and learn from them. And yeah, try, or do better,
mm.
do. Yeah, not try, do.
Yeah, do make it happen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anna.
Yeah.
That's very inspiring. Yeah, I wish you all the best. And maybe I don't know if you'll do other topics or if you'll stick with time, but time is it's a beautiful topic and endless topic to talk
Yeah.
about. and
It
maybe
is.
I'll come and hear one of your speeches.
Yeah, yeah, you are invited, and it would be lovely to meet you. And thank you very much for having me here today.
That was Anna Jelen, keynote speaker. You will find more episodes on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcast, as well as any of your favorite players. I'm always looking for new guests, so please send me ideas to jobtalespodcast@gmail.com. See you next week for a new episode of Job Tales.